Go. There we are. We are recording. Hello. This is the second episode ever of Classically Trained Nobody, and I'm Brian Skoll, and I have a special guest, my cousin, Matthew Miller. Matt. Hello, Matt.
Super special guest.
Super special. Super. The specialist ever. Yeah, and just a little backstory. Matt is my cousin, and but more like a brother. So, and that's the extensive backstory. That's it. So, we're cousins. And we grew up in a Dago family. Italian family. Trigger warnings. They're So, I wanted to talk this episode about cults. It's been coming up more in like the public consciousness, the public awareness, pretty much since you had Religulous with Bill Maher, and then there was kind of a lull. But recently you have HBO. I don't know if you saw this, the HBO Going Clear documentary.
Seen it, but I know a lot about it.
Yeah. It was documentary about Scientology. It covered a lot of stuff, and then just right after that, there was the Leah Remini. Remini? Is that how you say it? Okay, Leah Remini. On the Scientology. So there's a lot of stuff about cults.
Basically, that's really it. People would dumb down.
Yeah.
Kevin James show, you don't need to watch it for him, but she was pretty funny and she's pretty awesome in real life.
Yeah, she seems like a really cool person. So more people are learning more about Scientology as a cult. And the surprising thing to me when I watched the Going Clear documentary was how similar the tactics were, the mentality, just the cult-like mentality seems to be present regardless of the cult. And we were raised Jehovah's Witnesses, born into it, and Jehovah's Witnesses, they were started in it was the late 19th century. It was 1870, by Charles Taz Russell.
Was it 1890s? I think it was a little early.
1870, I think.
I mean, later.
Yeah, it was at the very end.
No, yeah, because they had that 1914 prophecy nonsense.
Yeah, and they had been pretty well established by that point. And I guess in a way, all religions kind of start off cult-like. It's just a matter of whether they transition into being normal. And the J-Dubs have never done that.
No.
So
actually, when you think about it, classical religions started as community.
Yeah.
And then the cult came later. But that's kind of the reverse for that.
Yeah. And it was okay. So on your side of things, our moms are sisters, right? And so your mom was in what they call the Jehovah's Witnesses. The Jehovah's Witnesses call what they do and what they preach the truth. So there's a big usage of specific words. So your mom was in it first. Your mom, how old was she? Do you remember?
It was when she was pregnant with Ross, I believe. So, I don't know, he would have been, 40-something? So...
Yeah, okay.
20s, 30s, she was. Something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so close to our age, around when she found it, and
she had some world experience.
Yeah.
Bad experience with William's father. So she's been through some shit. So that helped, and then my dad being the alcoholic probably helped as well. The conversion.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The one thing to take note on the Jehovah's Witnesses especially is they take pride on converting drug addicts, converting alcoholics, and essentially vulnerable. They wear it as a badge of honor, but it's really not when you understand what's really going on. So your mom came to my mom with it, and when my mom hadn't yet met anybody yet. She was probably in her young 20s, and my mom recalls it as here's what's funny is that like I used to do the same shit as my mom did, and she told me, she was like, well, I used to lay awake at night wondering what the purpose of life was, and what it was all for, and it would keep me up at night, and then Laura came to me with the truth. So that's how my mom describes it, and it's funny because I used to do the same thing, but I was born in as a Jehovah's Witness, and I still was doing the same thing, and my conclusion was to go the way of philosophy. My mom's conclusion was to go the way of religion, but it's just funny how that happens. Now, on my dad's side, my dad was born and raised in it, and my grandfather was coming out of World War II. He joined up and then helped build the congregation that I grew up in, and was a presiding overseer. There are what's called elders in the congregation, and the elders run things. It's a true patriarchy if you really want to get technical. If you want to know what a real patriarchy looks and feels like, look at a cult.
Yeah, I'm not sure they call them providing overseers anymore.
No?
Tidbits. They changed some vocabulary up recently for the new generations.
Okay. All right, so I'm using some outdated verbiage.
Yeah. There's basically people think think of a big store where you have regional managers and then company managers. It's basically the hierarchy of a giant department store.
And yeah. And it's not far off, because the people who are running it are like people who work in department stores and shit, and like bricklayers and plumbers and shit. So they're just like, and that's statistically very true for the entire religion. So
10 tops, they're the richest fuck.
Yeah. Well, and of course, like, people at the top are always far more educated. They operate out of New York, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. They're big organization as far as cults go, really, if you look at it. That's the central hub of dogma that gets pushed out there. So essentially we were born and raised in the faith. So what were things like for you? Because you always had like a foot out of the door in many ways with your dad.
I was thinking about this the other day when we talked about doing this, and we have such a similar viewpoint, and we're going to talk about that, but we also at the same time had very different experiences in it as well.
Yeah.
Because my dad wasn't in it, so there was always that little bit of extra freedom.
Yeah.
There was more of there wasn't really a clash. There weren't really any arguments about it, but you were like, I call you legacy, because that's basically with your dad's side. That's what you were.
Yeah.
Many very different things, but I don't know. Where do you want to start?
Well, I guess we could paint a good picture of what is it like being a Jehovah's Witness, and some of the core things that they believe. Like they provide it's a literalist sort of interpretation of the book itself. They believe that the book is the literal word of God, and that select scriptures are to be, have been chosen as top priority to be followed. But what makes them a cult more than anything is the degree of control that they have over your life, over your personal life. So go ahead.
There's differences are like as a child, it was very different for me. Um, and then, well, I mean, obviously, when you become a teenager, things change. But for me, I noticed much different things. As a kid, it was just, very nice. It felt safe because, when you're a kid, you listen to your parents. And my dad never really argued with any of it, so I just figured, they'll come around eventually, that kind of thing. But I remember in Chicago, the congregations were really nice as a child. I didn't feel any pressure or really control. But it was always mostly just strict, at least in the early days. I remember just Bible stuff. Like, because what they would do at what they called meetings, churches, whatever, we actually read through the Bible basically over and over again, if you recall.
Oh, yes.
Like passages. That was very important for them. But as far as the control goes, no holidays, no birthdays. It was all for what they said as, the truth, the God, but really just the organization itself. And as a kid, I didn't realize that, but looking back, that's like all it was. Because whatever was said in there, like from the pulpit, was truth, no matter what.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day about how I remember specifically one time when we were supposed to be going out, so we were going out in service, and I wanted to.
Service is our door-to-door hour. See that? How I fell back on
that? Oh yeah. It's ingrained. It's ingrained in you. Yeah. That's another distinction of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and what mostly people think when you say Jehovah's Witnesses is that they are the ones, alongside Mormons, they're the ones knocking on your door preaching, because it says to do so in the fucking Bible. And and so if you're going to follow the Bible, their rationale is to do as Jesus did and to preach what they call the good news of the kingdom. Good news of the kingdom. Preach the good news. And
when they come to your door, it's all only the good stuff.
Yeah, it's only good stuff. The bad stuff comes later. And I remember specifically this time when I didn't want to go out in service, because I didn't often want to go out in service when I was a little kid, because my mom pioneered when I was a kid. Before, through grade school, she pioneered. And so guess what I was doing when I wasn't in school, and it was just you just hours and hours being in a fucking car, in a fucking suit, not wanting to go. And I remember you saying, and here's what's so fucked up about this. Okay, I remember you said to me, well, you got to be good so that we can live forever in a paradise when we get older. And if you think about what that means, it's like, okay, because I'm giving my family, I'm giving my mom shit about not wanting to go out in service. My mom is like, oh, we gotta go. And little kids are saying, if you don't go out in service, God is going to kill you, and we're not going to live forever in a fictitious paradise on earth. So so that belief was really, really strong. What was that like, having that belief as a kid for you?
For me as a kid, there was no concept of if it was right or wrong. It just was. And I remember though, early asking, "What about all my friends at school?" And the conversation of that they're not going to make it if they don't convert. I remember a distinct memory. I had to have been maybe 7, of just pure sadness. It wasn't fear. It was just pure sadness. But then I never thought about it really again after that waved over me, because in the back of my head, and in the front of my head, and in my entire brain, it's true.
Yeah.
We were the ones that were in the right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I was told to, if I could, preach at school as a little kid, and that's what I did. If it ever came up at school, I didn't push it because that's another difference between us. Even like at our core, it's kind of funny when I was thinking about it. Like I'm such an introvert, and I've always been that, and you've been very out and open, not in the gay way. I mean, kind of in the gay way.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some gay stuff, but
At parties and going and doing things and having all that stuff, and that kind of reflected our upbringing too.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I
You were pushed hard to do all the stuff, and I could always have the out.
yeah, yeah,
And at the time we didn't know, but definitely I had some behavior problems.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's my earliest feeling of that, of any kind of strangeness, was that sadness of knowing all the people that I liked seeing at school probably die.
we're gonna die. Yeah, yeah,
And as kids too, most kids don't have concept of death unless something really bad happens. We were pretty much told straight up what death was from the very beginning.
yeah, yeah. From the beginning, and unlike
What it really meant.
yeah, yeah, and that was the thing. Like I'm trying to so my interest in this and talking about it more so now too kind of involves understanding really what, like you look at the things that are wrong with you in life, okay, and you it helps to find the origin, and if you can trace the origin you can better understand what's going on, and so in some ways it's a way to sort of trace the origins back to sort of figure out, okay, what part of this is me and what part of this was instilled by the cult. And so I've been kind of like looking into like, there's a lot of JW recovery groups and shit just to see like some of the common factors that affect people who have been in the cult, because you're right, because like when you're a little kid and you get told like early on, like I've had an obsession with death from a very, very early age, and I can't tell whether or not it was because of the religion or just because of who I am. But the religion focuses heavily on death, even for kids. Like you're saying, like they don't hide it at all. They said like as soon as you can understand what's going on, they're like, well, when you die, you're dead forever. Like it's one of the first things. They like, but you could live forever if you wanted.
Religions first.
Yeah. Yeah. Religions don't usually, that's not the first thing. And usually when, like you get a religion like Buddhism and they talk about death, but they talk about death as like, it's an inevitability. And here's how we think you should deal with the fear of it. With Jehovah's Witnesses, it's just like, it's all fear. It's like, you're going to be dead forever if you don't do these things. And then who knows? Because only God can judge your heart, and then there's all these like sort of, yeah, all these prerequisites. You if you don't unlock at least 5 achievements, you're not gonna make it.
So what was maybe like a story or something about like as a small child before the teenage years, growing up with like the weight of having family in it, like your grandpa and your dad.
Yeah. Well,
the weight of being a pariah of sorts.
Yeah. Well, okay, so.
It wasn't gonna be your sister because she has a vagina.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. The legacy is carried through by the penis. Always. The responsibility of a dick. So, what it was like growing up with 2 members of the family. My dad was all in because he was born and raised in it, and it was always something that was very conflicted to him because it was a lot of rules, and creative people are not good with a lot of rules. And my dad was a very creative guy, but so he struggled with that, and that struggle was really, really prominent in the household, because it was kind of hot and cold. Like some things were okay sometimes, and then when the regrets set in, from whatever fucked up thing that my dad did, he would, then we had to follow all the rules like a ton of bricks. So it was hot and cold. But like if you take 1 week, for instance, 1 week in the life of a Jehovah's Witness, you so Monday you're preparing for Tuesday, right? And the meetings are Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, and I know they've cut back on the hours. I'm not sure what it is now, but back then it was like
Different for everyone.
yeah. Is it? Okay?
There was the staple Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. And you have it was like hour and a half, 3 hours, and then 3 hours or something like that. It was like there was this shorter Bible study, which wasn't as long, and then there was 2 long ones.
I think the 2 long ones were like 2 hours.
2 hours, okay.
Yeah. And then the book study was the small one. That was just basically going through the book.
Yeah.
At someone's house, usually.
Yeah, you meet at someone's house. It's smaller, more personal.
That's not weird to the neighbors.
Not at all. Just groups of people dressed in suits meeting together to read out of a small book. Talk to the imaginary people. And so
Effigies in their backyard.
yeah.
No, but that's not paid stuff. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, it's geared to keep you busy every day of the week. So Monday you prepare for Tuesday, the Tuesday meeting. And then you have the meeting Tuesday. And then Wednesday you're preparing for Thursday, and then you have the meeting Thursday. Friday's usually the free day, right? The flip day. And unless you're a pioneer, and then like every day is going out in service day.
Oh yeah. Every Saturday was usually the normie day for that.
Yeah, Saturday morning service.
And after Sunday meetings. Well,
Exactly. And then you have the Sunday meeting, and then fucking after the Sunday meeting, it's just like 2 hours, and then you go out in service for like another. They would average it like 3 hours. You'd have a more like on Saturdays you'd have two service meetings. They were called, and the service meetings were like for the more serious service overseers, they were called, and pioneers and stuff like that, and they'd have a brief study and prepare beforehand and go over the all the material that they tell you what to say. They actually tell you what to say, and how do you approach this scenario? And then it's like, this is what you should say, and word for word. So you're just practicing. You're going over the notes of this programmed response of what to say. And I remember it was so funny because after a while you get used to the no, and you have the entire setup for the no, to handle the no, and then every once in a while you get a yes, and it's like you don't know how to handle it. Because, what is it? I heard some weird statistic. It was like it takes an average witness like 8 years or something like that of preaching before they get one. It's something insane. I'm fucking it up, but it's like it's a lot of hours of preaching before you.
Imagine nowadays.
Oh yeah.
With the information available, like how many people actually want to give a shit, unless they're inviting them in to argue or debate or trap on both sides. It happens both ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't imagine the actual sincerity of people that need help that they reach.
Yeah.
Perceive help.
Yeah.
The kind of person. You hear, you see the kind of person that you gotta be in that perfect state. Oh, my life is shit. Yes, please come talk.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, some of the averages of coming out of the whole group of the organization is they usually barely have a high school education, and they usually same here. I mean, I dropped out of high school, like a lot of witnesses did, and that's very common. And then after that, it's very low income, very low education, and then among people who leave, there's a higher proportion of people who develop mental illnesses like schizophrenia. It's like 20% higher rate of suicide, schizophrenia, and depression from leaving the congregation, from leaving the organization as a whole. So, of the Christian religions, it's one of the more dangerous ones to successfully leave. And I guess along with that, people have a statistically higher chance of going back if they left, right? So a lot of people leave and they live their life, and then they come back. How could you come back? Oh my God.
When you fail in life, that's when the thing goes right.
Yeah. It's like the Quakers.
Your support structure disappears because of the shunning, which I guess you get to, but you were kind of jumping everywhere.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Like, yeah, shunning. Shunning is an important thing. So, you want to talk about that?
I think we could wait a sec because I think transitioning from when we became teenagers and decided taking for themselves, we could start talking about the shunning.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so here's a good question. Okay, so what was the so you have this entire belief structure, right? And it's this entire fantasy. And the fantasy is, you do all these things that you're supposed to do. You preach the good news and you be a good person, right? We're part of this team, and the team is us versus them. We are the right ones, they are the wrong ones. The whole world, right? Yeah. Worldly organization run by Christendom. And so no, not really. Yeah. It's a funny word. So you're a superhero. You're a superhero, and you're going to save the world, and you fully believe in it, and you're getting orders from the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society, and then okay, so then you're starting to get older, right? And what was? Can you remember the first time you started to feel really doubtful? What was that like?
Well, before that, I think you touched on some good points there of listening to the society, and earlier about like the touch and go nature of what things were right, what things were wrong. I want to talk about really quickly the social side of it, and like,
oh yeah,
we'll do recreational what's right or wrong, because that's important, more important than you think, because the mentality of that seeps into everything. So when we were kids in the 90s, video games were nerds. Mortal Kombat showed up, and I remember distinctly hearing talk about Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Doom was in there too.
Doom, yeah. But it was everything. It was movies, comics, TV shows, everything. And I always remember that it was always really weird at your house, because sometimes we could play a lot of games. Sometimes when our moms were working, we watched R-rated movies with your dad.
Yeah.
And then other times, it was like it never happened.
Yeah. And if you suggested it,
you were talking about your back and forth with your dad. I think that's one of the things that definitely affected that.
Yeah.
Because your dad was a nerd. He had Dark Knight and comics and all kind of shit too.
Oh my God, he handed me my first Batman comic and my first Hulk comic, and oh yeah. Yeah, things were hot and cold, and my mom believed that the demons would come through the TV because my dad watched a Stephen King movie, and listening to that, thinking like, holy shit, the demons could come through the TV. The devil can read my mind, like psychological warfare of the highest accord. Like, I'm sitting there in the shower, freaking myself out because I think Satan can read my thoughts.
Or like if you're flipping through a comic and you see someone's head get blown up, and you're like, oh my God, is this a demon panel?
Yeah. Is this a
what can you do? How does it, because nobody told us how it worked.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Real.
Yeah, nobody knew how it worked. Dude, I got grounded for it was more than a week for getting caught playing Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. And then that stuff seeps into your brain more because it's your everyday stuff. So it makes you super aware of things. And
it's true.
Like you said, I won't call myself a creative person, but I like to consume things. So I always wanted to read things, and always wanted to play things and watch things, and that's at the core, I think, what started it. Because I was told, like, if I was ever at a library, like, don't even touch things like Dante's Inferno or anything.
Like the D&D. D&D.
D&D was the big thing. I never played D&D until I was like 20.
Yeah. Dude, I used to secretly play Vampire the Masquerade, Inquisition when I was in middle school. I used to do it secretly at the library because it was like this like evil thing, demonic thing, and I was like, hee hee hee.
And it's funny though, because it's like no Dungeons and Dragons, but we could watch that Ralph Bakshi Hobbit movie cartoon. No one's the exact fucking same thing. Because that was the thing. There was no logic behind it. It was whatever the society said was bad for this month. You know.
Yeah.
But I think that was the start of it for me, because as we grew up and playing more games and our minds were developing, I'd be like, why is this wrong? Well, because there's this. And then it would just be arguments back and forth with that. And I was like, well, I'm going to play the game anyway. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to read the comics anyway. As a kid, I didn't have money, but so I was like, I'll either just sit here and read them here at the store, or you buy them for me. So either one.
Yeah. And then nothing bad happens. Over the years, you get nothing bad happens from doing something that you were scared into believing that it was going to possess you.
Yeah, and then that's what we did. Like, at least for me, like, we would push things and be like, okay, well, I want to see if this thing happens, then I'll go full on and repent and all that shit, but nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And then, from there, and then, passions of the body took over, and, pornography happened. It's like, okay.
Masturbation.
Yeah, because there was always the talks, don't do this, don't do it. There was no talk of why. There was no talk of how. There was no the talk. There was no biology. So, I never approached anyone about that stuff, because that was the most, like, secret thing. Ooh, don't do that. But, yeah, I think it was just for me, my interest first. It started it, and then it was moving here to Rockford, and seeing the congregation here that we went to. Especially once we realized when you guys came out that, because you guys came out as kind of an escape, that there was no escape for you, because they all knew each other.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a hard realization in a series of realizations, was that, like, oh, we could just go over here. We could just go 200 miles away and we'll be fine. And except that we're not fine, because this guy is really good friends with this guy, and this guy knew my grandfather, and they, you know what I mean? Like, they were, there's no fucking escape.
As a teenager, like, starting to think about things, and we really didn't have access to any other kind of literature things. So for a long time there, it was just defiance, subtle defiances here and there, and then it was more about just wanting to stop going to the meetings and stuff, just to get out of it, because I noticed, man, there's like so many angles to come out of this. From you guys eventually moved out, and then you started telling me about the shit that was going on with you. So you and April started it. I don't want to use names, whatever, it doesn't matter, everybody knows.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, when my brother moved back in, the shit that we got from him and his family.
Yeah.
Multiple stories of that. So I started noticing the cliques more of what was happening to which families. Like us.
It was a popularity contest.
Yeah. I know a couple other friends I had there, what they were going through with some of them.
Yeah.
I don't know, you probably don't remember. You remember, what was his name? Little lanky kid.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. I remember. Yeah.
he went through a lot of stuff because of that stuff too. Like,
Well,
I remember specifically going over there. I was wearing a Stone Cold shirt, and his grandma was like, "Yeah, he likes that stuff too, but not he can't watch it anymore because you know who." Again, I guess it doesn't matter, but Harris even been talking to you about how wrestling was bad, so he couldn't watch that anymore. And I remember Pokemon. He couldn't do Pokemon because oh, just these little things.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
It's just insane to me. But yeah,
Well, and so from your end of it, you know, I remember one point that was like, I think I remember the breaking point with you, and that was because what'll happen with Jehovah's Witnesses is that there's different ranks that you can climb up to, and the second level rank. So you have
subtle ranks.
subtle ranks. Yeah.
When you're in it, it feels organic.
Yes. Yeah. So you have like your basic entry level person, and then after that you have being baptized, and what they don't tell you is that like once you're baptized, that's it. Like you're in for life, right? Or it's going to be a world of hurt. And even if you're not baptized, for me, I didn't need to be baptized. It was a world of hurt for me, but my situation was different. But I tried to get baptized, and things were just not working out at the time because there was just too much going on. But I remember what they'll do, even if you're not baptized, what they'll do is they'll start publicly shunning you even before they do what's called a disfellowshipping, which is if you're baptized and you do something wrong, it's a shunning. It's a public shunning, and like no one can talk to you, and even close friends and family.
Oh yeah, especially.
Yeah, and so they'll divide families. They will divide families for this status, and things are starting to go sideways when we were living together in Rockford. And they started pulling shit with you, with Adam, and I remember Adam was sort of like a breaking point.
It was a subtle breaking point because, yeah.
So like, what was that situation like? So he's your friend, and we're hanging out, right? And
You know, the method for young boys especially, and this is gonna sound bad, but don't worry guys, none of that stuff happened. But it was basically a mentor thing. You know, I didn't have my dad had passed away a while back, and this was before he moved, and Ross was still living with us, and Ross sure as hell wasn't going to be the role of big brother, even though that biologically was his job. Yeah, but no, because you know my mother was basically the single parent, and
yeah,
I needed a brother. That's what we're called there, men, until you're you receive the highest rank.
we are all brothers and sisters.
And Adam was legit. He was a good friend. He was genuine because he was one of the in it when he was born, went out of it, and then came back. So a lot of the things stuck around when he came back that made him more tolerable, I guess you could say, and less. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say extreme, but dogmatic.
Fervent.
Yeah. So the goal was to obviously get a study going, and you know start shaping that. But
You got to count those hours, right? They make you keep track of the hours when you go in service, and whoever gets the most hours wins. So,
but that wasn't just it for him because you know we would go hang out, we would watch movies, we would play video games, and like basically he was the first friend I had out there that wasn't like a little kid. So I don't know like the time of how long it took, but he was trying to marry this girl, and he was, I guess you could say, a lesser caste.
yeah.
The girl was in one of the big families, and that just sounds like Game of Thrones.
But that's how it was. That's how it was. Big family who've been in it for a long time.
There were all sorts of problems going on because they were trying to hang out and do things that people do when they like each other, which is against the law for us at the time, because they weren't married. So that started seeping into everything else that he did, because I got a visit from the big guy Mike Harris, dun, that it was inappropriate for him to study with me any longer. And by what he meant was hang out, because we could no longer associate like that because of all the shit he was going through. And that really hurt, because I was, 12, 13, and this was someone that actually gave a shit about me.
Yeah.
Outside of counting hours or wanting to get me to, be a member of the congregation or whatnot. It was never really about that. So, that was an eye opener for sure. I don't know if that was like my breaking point, because that came later.
Okay.
You guys moved out and all that stuff. Because we were still going. Like, well, I tend to think about timeline of where people lived.
Yeah.
We were still just about going when you lived on those Riverside apartments.
Okay.
I think.
So how long did you go even after you sort of stopped buying it?
Well, again, that was the start of it. I kept going full on into that, and then man, I just such a muffled timeline. But I don't, because there was stuff with you in April, and secondhand, I was like, that's garbage. And then wasn't there someone else after that?
Oh yeah. The April wasn't the breaking point. Okay, so
because part of my actual breaking point was because it was actually involved you directly and indirectly because of the shit that was going on with you. I got a visit from Mike Harris about you.
Okay. Yeah, see, and they had collectively made a decision across two congregations, because I was friends with people across congregations at the time, and I was in front of my friends when it happened on my end. They went around and talked to everybody in my circle, obviously you included, even my mom, where they suggested to my mom that she kick me out of the house. In front of me, we were going to a party, me and a buddy of mine at the time. His name is Aaron. And and we were walking into this party, and a higher up elder from the other congregation walks up to Aaron, and with me standing right there, points at me and says, he's been marked. And he just gave this whole big speech about how I've been marked as a bad influence, and that by hanging out with me, you are tainting your reputation, and you really need to consider who your friends are. And we're about to walk into a fucking party, right? And it's like, here, let me sack you. Here's a sack tap. Have fun at the party, right? I felt like completely defeated, and it was a really defining moment, because I remember thinking while I was in the party, looking around, feeling like people are being told to stay away from me. This is, it was like, how in those stupid movies where you get like everyone standing around you like you have a bad dream and everyone's standing around you in a circle shunning you. Like that's what was happening to me in my head, like after, we walk. Well, yeah, it was happening. And in so many ways. And at that point I remember thinking I wanted to ask him this question, and I never did. And because I knew the answer, and I was like, well, what is that? Are we still friends? Like, and I thought that when I looked at Aaron after he talked to him like that right in front of me, and that was pretty much the end of the friendship right then and there. It was like the next day I was getting the cold shoulder from him, it was such a horrible feeling. Like I didn't even know exactly what I had done wrong at that point, aside from they caught me listening to Korn. I was trying to date a girl. I mean, it was really basic. Like me and Aaron had bought Limp Bizkit tickets, and we were so excited to go see fucking Limp Bizkit. It was right off of their Korn tour, and it was like, oh my god.
Anybody listening? It was the late '90s.
Oh yeah. Though I don't listen to Limp Bizkit anymore. We ate I ate the tickets. I ate the tickets because of that. We were supposed to go. And
I think I remember you having the tickets, being like, "Hey, here's some tickets that are worthless."
Yeah.
I think I actually remember physically seeing the tickets, just hanging out all the time, because you're just like.
Yep. And so it was. Yeah, so the shunning. So that's pretty. That's a good way to cover what the shunning was like. Is that you suddenly feel completely alone, and they stalk you.
It's a lot worse for people that are in the giant families.
Yeah,
And again, that goes to show the differences between the shuns because in the bigger families where it's everything, that's when you get the stories of suicides and
yeah,
starting to get into the drugs because they're basically thrust out into this world that they know nothing about and they have no support.
yeah,
They may have a job, but the job is secondary to their so-called truth. But then once that's gone, and they have this little, like piddly little job, and then have to live on that without any help. That's the crazy part.
yeah. Because the good thing about the
But for us when we were younger,
yeah, yeah. Well, the good thing about the organization is that okay, it's a network, right? And once you get into it, you'll always have a job, right? And but you'll have a job and a place to live. You'll always have those things, and they will make sure that you eat. And there are many times from being a little kid up until the very end where those things were provided for us. When shit went down, we were too poor to eat. The congregation provided food. When I was looking for a job, I had absolutely no problem. I made one phone call as a teenager, and I got a job as a bricklayer. It was one phone call. It was one phone call. It was the easiest fucking application ever, and I just got hired because I was part of the organization. But when you leave, they will take it all from you as fast as they can. They will take your job, and they did. They did. They took my job. They tried to get me kicked out. They took all my friends. They'll stalk you to the point where they will walk around your house looking in your windows looking for stuff. That happened to us on more than one occasion.
yeah. Well, I mean, you had the added effect again. Is if you go back to the difference between us of you like having your so-called normal teenage things. I hid those away, stayed inside. But girl situation, on a personal level, you had some of them crazies coming around as well.
Yeah, driving past the house every day.
Because with choice, that was supposed to be it. That was the one you found, right? That was the model because you were going to get married.
Yeah.
And that was what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that the first relationship with her was to try to escape my fucked up family. I was just trying to escape. I just remember thinking I need to escape, and I didn't know what I was trying to escape from. And with the first girl, it was my family, and then with the second girl, it was the second girl, Steph, who stalker Steph. Yeah, well, and because that was the breaking point because that was like, okay, I lost my virginity to her, and her family was at that point more connected than mine because her dad was an elder, right? And my dad had at that point been not going as much, and we were looking at like, okay, being further away from Chicago, and she was in a congregation even further removed, and they didn't give a shit about that. So yeah, her dad was an elder, and
Are you suggesting that the two teenagers, young adults, in a religious organization that are supposed to wait till they were married didn't? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Oh yeah, we had all the regretful sex you can imagine. It was so that's a good transition to the next phase of this. Is that like, okay, so how much did you regret how many years did you regret masturbating?
I want to put a comment real quick. The quick answer to that is not a whole lot because I got over it. But I remember soccer staff. There was some you didn't tell me every detail, but I saw moments of the freaking sector. I don't know if you remember this. There were moments in your room when we were all just hanging out where I could tell she got in the mood because she would want me at the computer to look up porn. And I always had these feelings of, is she gonna do something to me right now? She want to threesome right now? Because it's kind of weird.
Yeah, holy shit, I think I blocked that out.
I don't know if you unleashed the freak or she was already in there.
Oh, of course. Of course.
She was in an elder family.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was always in it. Anyway, I just remember her being like, this person's unhinged.
This person's yeah, or about to be. Yeah, well, she couldn't take no for an answer. Like, you talk about not being able to take no for an answer. I broke up with this girl on a rerun for like a week. Like a week's worth of breaks up. Like, okay, so it would be like I'd break up with her, she'd cry. We'd talk it through, and it was like, okay, because I knew things were going to go south. I knew it. It was like, all right, things are, you could see it coming. And there's another sexual drunk episode that was the final catalyst after this. So here's what's funny. So this is the end all for me was surrounding these groups of this group of friends here. Steph and I do it, and things are starting to get, she latches on 100% because that's just what happens when you lose your virginity. I'm not sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. Even when you're not religious, but there's this extra religious sort of like, we're going to get married now. You know, okay, we did it. Let's get married now. And that was just way too much for me. Yeah. So I would break up with her. She would cry. She would leave, say, okay, leave. Okay. A couple days would go by. She'd show up at my place again. And the first time it happened, I was like, okay, this is weird. She would come in and then act like nothing had happened. Start telling me about her day. Start flirting with me. Like, and this happened like at least twice. Before, like, it was about the third time where like she started showing up kind of desperately, kind of like, I know you broke up with me, but like, and then it got to the point where
that's depressing.
Oh yeah. And then it got to the point where you and I are hiding in my room with all the lights off.
Remember.
And she's ringing the phone and knocking on the door. It was like what, for an hour. She rang the phone like over 30 rings, 40 rings before hanging up. Like, it got crazy. And of course, okay, so then when you don't respond, then the anger kicks in. And then that's when the shit ton of bricks started coming down. But right before the shit ton of bricks come down, what happened then was I got really drunk during the breakup, and I would have otherwise died if. So here's what happened. Like, the breakup happens, and I'm hanging out with her brother, and one of her friends, and so we all three of us got drunk, and things happened.
Good Christians do.
As good Christians do, and things happened. Yeah. But I got blackout drunk. I was told what happened after the fact, and it was a big, terrible, well, it wouldn't have been terrible if you're not in a cult, but, you know, a big, young fucking orgy. And that was it. That was it. It was like, I am, they tried to take me apart for that. Cause it was like, because of me, it was like 3 people got disfellowshipped. Like 3 people got disfellowshipped.
It's clearly all your fault.
Yeah, it was all my fault.
Any agency there.
Yeah.
Bad seed, obviously.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, that's what they thought. Like, but when I left a wake of disfellowshipped people in my. Oh my God, yeah, exactly. That's how fucked up it was. So like, yeah, so sex was really difficult. Leaving the church and years of regret and just being confused, because it's never something that you sort of develop when you're a kid, or maturing, because they teach you to try to deny all those impulses, and so all those impulses are from the devil, and if you indulge in those impulses, then you're opening the door for the devil to influence your life, you know. So yeah. Aside from that, it was alongside a series of realizations of just watching how they acted, and it really started when I was younger. The seeds of doubt were planted when I was younger, and it took a delay to catch up. I had a prominent elder in the congregation I grew up in take me off to the side, because my dad must have got worried, because things were shaky back and forth between my mom and my dad, and I think my dad got wind that I might say something to a teacher about the abuse, the physical abuse. And because my dad was extremely physically abusive, and so he had to have gotten wind of it, because I know my mom threatened him on more than one occasion, and I know like she had him threatened too because of, Dago family. So aside from that, like, so I had this elder, Art, his name was, and he took me off to the side. We were out in service, and he like wraps his big fucking arm around me, and he says, well, you really got to think of the family, the family, the quote unquote family. And he was talking about the whole congregation. You gotta like temper how you're acting. You gotta settle down. You gotta relax. He's telling me to settle down, to relax. That there's nothing that can be done about it, and to don't make it worse. In other words, it was a real subtle threat. I mean, I'm a kid. I was like 10 years old, and so it was things like that. It was like as I got older, as I started maturing, and I was a late bloomer. So as I'm getting to like 15 years old, I'm starting to think about this shit, and it's like, it's not adding up. The little inconsistencies. I remember, okay, here's a fun little inconsistency. When I remember being a little kid, they would have the visiting brothers and sisters, the visiting traveling overseers is what they called them. One of the traveling overseers who came through had a beard. And I remember thinking, okay, that's weird. And I asked my mom about it, and I was like, well, he has a beard, and I didn't think you were supposed to have a beard.
Hair, no beard.
Yeah, short hair, no beard. You couldn't have facial hair. And if you grew facial hair, they wouldn't let you go up on the stage until you shaved it. But this guy, he came from somewhere. I don't even know where. There was a couple people from Africa for a little while, and I think that was it. And I remember asking, well, why is it okay that he has a beard in the African congregation and not okay that he has a beard in America? Isn't it all the same? And I just sort of got like brushed aside. Like, oh, well, that's just how it is, And it's like little things like that doesn't make any sense. But then, okay, so then leaving. It took years to leave. And, for me, it was, okay, I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, and then realized I was really stupid, and I hated being stupid, and the only place to get smart was college, and I jumped into that world, and was still holding on to a lot of beliefs. And that's another thing that's really interesting, is that like most witnesses who leave still believe in God, whereas you and I,
A long time.
oh yeah, for a long time, most of the time, they still believe in God, because they can't let that go. But you and I sort of like came to the similar conclusions on our own, just by carrying the logic through to its end, which, like you poke holes in it for long enough, and you're going to find problems with all of it. And that's what it was for me. I went to college holding on to a lot of beliefs. I remember taking my first biology class still having doubts about evolution, and after the biology class, I didn't have those doubts anymore, because I was determined to get a good grade, and it forced me to study really hard. And by studying really hard, you come to see, you learn all the stuff, And that was, I remember my first biology class in college was when I let that go, and I believed in evolution finally. And I wrote a paper about why evolution was false in the biology class as a last-ditch effort to try to find as much evidence as I could to the contrary. And it was a shitty fucking paper. And after that paper, it was like, okay, it's too stupid. I can't deny it anymore, So it took a while for the beliefs to sort of shed themselves one after the next. And do you remember when it was when you determined, like, oh my God, he doesn't exist?
I'm gonna go back real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just remembered when we were still at that helped, because I do thinking on it. I do remember a point when I stopped going. I don't remember the context, but I remember like there were some sisters over fucking my mom about me because I had stopped going. there were problems. And I don't remember. I was playing something, and they were in the dining room. This is at the Custer house, and talking about something, and I just blurted out, "You don't fucking care about us anyway. Why are you here?" And then, like, that just stopped the conversation. And I think that was the point where I was like, "Well, I guess I'm done." I just remember I think it was Sue Hardy said, "Well, that's how you feel." And for like, it's usually big black loud woman that just stopped her.
Yeah.
It's like, that's how you feel. And then they went off into the kitchen and said whatever they were saying with my mom, and then left. And I think that was the moment I was done with that. When my brother was still living with us the second time after you guys had moved out, do you remember the flag incident?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Go for it.
So we had a bedroom on the first floor in the back of the house. So that's where my brother's little girl's room was. So as a curtain was this big dark blanket that cut out the sun perfectly, right? That's the setup. Two little girls. My two nieces were really young. Obviously, the room was off the neighbor's driveway. He didn't want people seeing his little girls change. God forbid, right? Obviously.
Yeah, that's really all it was.
All it was. So we're just sitting around, and regular day, whatever. I dropped out of school, so I just sat around and played Chrono Trigger over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. To report, and then and then we get a visit from some elders, and then like, okay, cool, hey, what's up? It was just, hey, how's it going? Yeah, we have someone mentioned you guys were waving a flag in your front yard, and I was like, what? Flag? What? It's the worship men. The flag represents the world.
So flags are illegal. Flags are illegal.
And this is a big deal because one of the big tenets is, you worship God only. So this is a disfellowshipment kind of thing for my mom. I wasn't that bad. So in my head, I'm like, what is this garbage? And it dawned on me, and I literally, in the middle of their conversation, I'm like, oh my God, the blanket. This dark blanket was actually an American flag blanket.
And you couldn't tell on the side of the inside of the house.
You couldn't tell because it was really dark blue with really dark red and fairly noticeable white. So it was just a dark blanket to block out the sun. Huge blanket, covered the whole window. And I'm like, how the hell did anyone see this? Let alone notice it was a flag. And it came to my realization, someone had to drive by the house because it was in the back of the house, and you'd have to walk in the yard or our neighbor's driveway to roll up onto this window and see this flag. And I was just like, are you... So basically someone's been fucking watching us.
Yeah.
My brother lived there. He wasn't in the truth. Living in sin and having babies and all that stuff. Despite the fact that, we were a family that helped each other, even though we all hated each other and argued all the time. But my nieces, little girls, they did a... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what family does.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, you come in here, you actually took the time out, you had a conversation at whatever little secret elder meetings you had with your stupid little secret elder books that nobody's supposed to know about, deciding that today was the day to come talk to the Millers about their flag worship. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, what is, like, who did this? Like, who's the mentality to spy on people and to take such a little quote-unquote offense over something so ridiculous? Like, they were acting like we put a flagpole out in the front of our yard, and every morning we strung up a giant fuck-off flag.
And saluted it, and yeah. Yeah, because we figured out, like, because I remember going outside after that with you being like, all right, like walking down the sidewalk, seeing at what point could you see this flag from the road, and you could never see that flag from the road at any point. You had to have walked around the house.
Because it was just a fuck off dark blanket. You even saw it off the road. It was like, oh, that's a dark blue blanket.
Yeah.
Fuck. So I forgot what you asked me, but
Oh, was it about atheism? It was
oh yeah, yeah.
sort of at what point. I think it's important to note that only because that so many Jehovah's Witnesses still believe in God, and I've met a number of them, and it confuses me. And
They go to a different religion
yeah, a lesser one.
where it's more just church on Sunday, rah rah rah.
Go through the motions.
Yeah, I think I didn't know it until I started reading basically books that you chiseled off to me. But after I left the organization, which is I still had problems saying because I really wasn't in it like you were and many other people.
Yeah,
It was basically, I guess I was just like agnostic for the most part, or what's the word? No, theistic or something, where you still believe that there's something there, but not necessarily
that's that specific thing.
deism. I think it's called.
Yeah, yeah,
Where it's like I didn't let go of God because in my head I'm like, okay, these are corrupt men, and they have corrupted what God has wanted them to do. So I became that kind of Christian where it was, as long as I believe what I believe, it's my relationship with God, and none of that other shit matters. So if in my head I didn't rationalize things like, okay, would God give a shit that I'm murdering polygons in a video game? Of course he would. He's God. I think he's got more important things to worry about, right? You know.
yeah. Like we're worrying about what you're eating.
Yeah. I still held true to the version of Jehovah's Witnesses stuff where it's like, okay, the end times are coming, and you just gotta be a good person.
Yeah,
I realized that the organization just got corrupt. So yeah, I just for a long time I just believed in that, and every time something came up, I was like, okay, the rationality started creeping into the religiosity, and then it just eventually evaporated.
yeah, yeah.
Especially when you started showing me Dawkins books and stuff because you were going to college and learning that shit there.
Yeah, and I remember even before college, it was starting with basic logical hangups. Like your standard sort of infinite regress problems. And just basic logical fallacies that crop up when you start believing that God exists and God created everything. So it was like really, really basic stuff. Yeah, and then Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins was a huge, huge influence. I remember the God delusion was a really big deal for me.
Great, because it was he wrote it for us retards.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Easy to take in, and then from there.
And it was funny.
Yeah.
And I mean, it falls apart at the end when he starts talking about, he tries to give you an alternative to a purpose, and it's like, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, go back to your science, because there's a lot of psychology happening there that like he doesn't even touch on, and like, you can find purpose in the infinity of the universe. No, you can't. Yeah, like that just adds to the existential dread if you're an ex-Christian, recovering from a cult. You're just like, oh my God, I'm pointless, and that's the funny thing is that like. Going from is really, really difficult going from, okay, so you go from having ultimate purpose with this cult.
Like the purpose.
The purpose, yeah. You are the chosen one. To going to college, which liberal college lent itself perfectly to total narcissism, to total nihilism, especially nihilism, because then you learn how small and insignificant you are, and they don't properly prepare you either. And so it goes from ultimate purpose to no purpose whatsoever, and it's like, what's the fucking point of it all? But along the way, it was fun shedding it all, but as soon as you shed it all, it's like you gotta build yourself back up, and it took me into my mid-20s to shed everything, like the beliefs, right?
Oh no, yeah. Stuff. Like I talked to Jeremy about this. He grew up in even though they were Catholic, his dad was always like, "You want to go to church?" No? Alright, cool. Like, so, trying to explain to Jeremy, because we've had these talks, of shedding the beliefs that are ingrained in your brain are so hard.
Yeah.
Such a big part of you doesn't want to.
The purpose that can be gotten in smaller groups of people, even when they go through hard times. The sense of purpose that you get from community, how community is extremely important, and you lose all those things, and there's so many things that you lose that are essential to living, that they sort of provide for you, like security, comfort. Some ways. At the same time they're providing these things, they're also causing sort of great psychological turmoil, and making sure that you're constantly watching your own brother and sister. Like, so they want to make sure that you're watching each other enough to keep each other in line. But there's great security and comfort in that, because if you are doing things right, if you're meeting these standards, which are extremely hard to meet, you're an exemplar. You know, you're this paragon that everyone looks up to, and everyone wants to be, and you feel like you're like invincible, like absolutely. I still remember those feelings of like feeling like I was a superhero and I was invincible, and that like I was doing this important work, and like I don't think anything has really replaced that feeling. And the only thing that's gotten close would be like public performing, like dancing. And that's another thing, another interesting. A lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who end up leaving default to careers in entertainment, and I wonder if it's because of that jolt, that rush, because that rush is the only thing that's come close to that feeling of like ultimate purpose.
I always think of when it comes to that, the Wayans brothers, because they were ex-Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It just makes me laugh. Just because of all this stupid fucking movies they've made. That's what happens when you're a press kids. You can make scary movies.
You can make scary movie. You make a scary movie and you get kicked out. It's like Michael Jackson. I was talking about that the other day with some people. Like the Michael Jackson Thriller video.
He was still a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, and he released that disclaimer before the video aired. I watched it the night it aired because my dad was a huge Michael Jackson fan. He wanted to be Michael Jackson, amongst all the other things that he wanted to be. And we watched that premiere, and it freaking terrified me. It terrified me. But there was that disclaimer beforehand. These do not express the soul view of the artist. And it was like a last-ditch effort to not get disfellowshipped. Yeah.
That's what it was.
My dad made a phone call after that, if we watched that video after the premiere. And the congregations coordinated their announcement to disfellowship him. They all could, if you think about that, like the entire organization, at least in the Midwest, coordinated telling all the congregations that Michael Jackson had been disfellowshipped and that you should no longer buy or listen to his music.
Who cares if he's diddling kids? Zombie video.
Yeah. Well, no one knew at the time he was fucking kids. At the time, it was.
I bet you.
Yeah.
I bet you. Whatever elders he talked to, I bet you they knew.
Oh yeah. That's true. And he probably confessed.
All his money he wasted on that fucking ceilings back here.
Just to rape kids, it's like, that's so, like you could just fly to a third world country, right? I mean, like. Yeah, but yeah, there are a lot of famous people who have been Jehovah's Witnesses. Prince was one of them too. A lot of entertainers.
Prince, somehow, I think it was because money, she was, I think, almost to the end, he still believed in something.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was Prince. He like molded his own version of it. Everyone was like, yeah, okay, man, it's Prince, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah. But
it's a lost cause, just let Prince be Prince.
If you notice how much he slowed down performance-wise, as far as like videos went and tours, like when he started accepting that, like he used to do these crazy raunchy videos, that all came to an end.
It changed that way.
Yeah.
He was still fucking Prince.
Oh yeah, still Prince. So yeah, So it's tough to leave. It's tough to leave, and it's tough to leave on both physically and mentally. But the mental thing takes the longest, I think, because you got to replace it, you got to fill it back up, and
We were fortunate to do it so young, to not have super giant dynasty families because um, I can't think of his name. There's another YouTuber I randomly just found that is an ex-JW. He's not really popular, but I just randomly found him, and he talks about that too. And it's like it's a lot harder for people that have mothers and like grandparents and like the whole family just turns on you.
mm,
Because in my case, like just with all the shit that we've all done wrong, my mom and I had to have each other still. Any disagreements we had ideologically, they would be fights, and then we would move on.
yeah, yeah, and it worked really similar with my mom. There are still things I can't talk about with my mom, and there's still some pseudoscience stuff that she holds on to that I can't talk about.
I know she something she says while we're watching TV or something. I'll have to be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Jesus. And but I mean, I can't talk to my dad at all. And I've
We never like. It's been so long that no attempt by either of you to contact each other.
it's been like close to 6 years now. The last time an attempt was made, this goes hand in hand with the secretive JW agenda. Is he, instead of just, because the last thing I said to him was, the ball's in your court. If you discover that, if you have to be able to talk to me without trying to convert me, and if you can do that, if you can respect the fact that I'm never coming back to the belief, we can talk. I can forgive, I can handle all the other bullshit, and I can deal with it. And you just got to give me this one thing. And he couldn't do it. So it was probably 3 years after that, when I told him that he tried to check up on me, and that was about 5.5, 6 years ago. And he did it through his sister on Facebook. His sister gets a hold of me on Facebook, like, and I barely know this woman, and she's like asking me all these weird questions just out of nowhere, trying to be my friend. And I'm like, who the fuck are you? And she's like, oh, I'm Barb. Don't you remember? I'm Barb. And I was like, no, I know you. I know who you are. But who are you? Like out of nowhere asking me, like we're buddies all of a sudden. And I'm like, what's the end game here? Just out with it. Oh, well, your dad wants to know how you're doing. I was like, well, tell my dad that, yeah, exactly. He, not only can he ask, but
Ass man, you're talking to another grown ass man.
exactly. And I'm not, and to me it was clear at the time, if that's how he's doing things, I'm not in the business of fixing his train wreck. I'm in the middle of fixing my own, like, and that was it. It's been nothing since. So I figured, who knows?
Yeah, I feel bad, man, because that's such a shame.
It is.
I often think like I don't know. I had this thought the other day. I was thinking about him. I'm like randomly running into him on a street corner, and like he doesn't know about Ross, and I'm like, shit. Stuff like that makes me really sad that we just can't talk to each other. You guys just can't talk about things.
Yeah. It is sad because you figure,
Imagine that as an opening. Oh, hey, it's been a long time. How's it going? Oh, well, your nephew died.
yeah.
Nobody was able to get a hold of you to even maybe be at the funeral. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just sad.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's, it is sad, and it was partly that it was that realization, really quick. The formative years really started for me in Rockford, and dealing with my dad not being there except for on the weekends when he would come and visit, and then after a while realizing that, like, after all of that, and then dealing with everything that we had talked about, like being like, family doesn't, the term family means nothing, like as far as blood goes, and nothing will teach you that faster than when your own family shuns you, and so real quick it's like, well, I got to make my own family then, and so you and I sort of like, it just happened. It just clicked. Like the right kids in the right neighborhood at the right time sort of became our family, and and then I got the job at GameStop. Because leaving being a bricklayer for obvious reasons because of being a Jehovah's Witness, and that was a company run by somebody who was Jehovah's Witness. So can't have that job anymore. Didn't really want it anyway because being a bricklayer is painful and it sucks. So take a $10 pay cut, and
That money is choice.
oh my god, yeah, it was great having money for a little while though. But yeah, take a pay cut and go work at GameStop, and then that completed the friendship, the family. We met everybody who we're still friends with now, that I still consider to be part of my family. But that was the start of sort of forming my own family. And the funny thing about all of our friends, not all of our friends, a lot of our friends, was that like every one of us was sort of like missing crucial aspects of our family in our own respect. Like, and so we all sort of came together in our fucked up own way,
It was such a movie moment because it was our mall rats,
Yeah.
and it was real. And I think for us it hit us hard because we had real friends before, at least until we fucked up. And these friends were different because we could, like if someone fucked up and it was to be talked about, we talked about it, and that was it.
So yeah, I think that covers it. I think that's sort of like,
Yeah, we baseline it because we could keep going.
yeah, we could keep going, but that sort of covers it really. We both still have to deal with it. So yeah, that pretty much covers the foundations of it. It was growing up in a cult. It was really weird. It was interesting.
I want to say that throughout the 3 congregations that I've been in my life, from Northwest and Chicago all the way to here, there were a lot of good people,
Oh yeah,
very genuine people
yeah,
that just worked their daily lives. And
wanted to believe something good.
yeah, it's hard to think back to a lot of those people because, like, who knows if they made a mistake and they got shunned, and it really sucks to think back on a lot of people that we've known.
Yeah, a lot of good people too.
Aspect of our friendships that we held were real.
Yeah, and the feelings were real. The emotions were real. One of the things that I think it's important to mention, just because of how often I watched it happen, was what happens to people who they're starting to mature. They're getting to be 17, 18 years old, 19 years old, and they the process usually goes like this. And this is how you watch people destroy their lives through a cult, because you're right, because there's a lot of good people, and being just the right age. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of good people who just meant well. But then you watch them ruin their lives, and one of the ways that they ruin their lives is they really want to have sex. And so the fastest way to do it is to get married. And they get married, and it's great for, God, sometimes a couple months, sometimes a few years.
I would say, is it?
Well, they think it's great. You can tell by the body language, right? They're having fun. They're having sex for the first time. It's fantastic, right? And then something happens, right? And they just settle into this routine, and you can tell they kind of don't like each other. And I watched that happen more than once, where, and the sisters have their own little sort of hierarchy things going on, and obviously, and they will talk so much shit about their husbands and how bad at sex they are. It is unbelievable to each other. And it just goes to show you what the importance of sexual compatibility, and what happens if you happen to choose somebody who you absolutely hate in bed, you absolutely hate having sex with, and you're married to them, and it's for life. And if you get divorced, your life is over.
How else are you supposed to know?
Yeah.
You're not even supposed to go on a date alone.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be with a group. You can't even get to really know someone aside from base friendship and base physical flirtation. Imagine seeing somebody that you like physically, because that's how we judge people when we first look at them. and then talk to them once, be like, this person's cool, and then the next day you get married.
Yeah, and that's what
You don't know how they live. You don't know if you're gonna, have to pick up socks all over the floor, or leave the seat up, or fucking leave the counter. Like all these regular things. So when you live with someone, you don't know any of that.
yeah. They don't even know how they live. They don't even know how they live because most of the time they're still living with their family, their own family. So they haven't even lived alone half the time before they jump into this, where it's like, okay, not only are you moving out for the first time, you're moving out for the first time, you're moving in with somebody for the first time, and it's all these unknowns. Yeah.
Not just sex, but like close intimacy, like close touching, hugging, kissing, like being with someone when it's just two people. Like you have no fucking idea.
No. And when I was dating, we had to be real secretive. The first two girls I tried to date as a Jehovah's Witness, it was like, you had to have an alibi, you had to tell people where you were going and what you were doing, and then meet up somewhere that was away from anybody you knew. And the longer you were in the organization, the better chances you were of going somewhere and running into somebody you know. And extremely common. And so you have to be careful, really, really careful. You go in someplace, you go out to eat at a restaurant, and somebody you know walks in, and well, there goes dinner. And you got to leave or get caught, and then your life is over, So, a lot of running around and being secretive, and that's kind of just what ends up happening if you want to have any sort of freedom within the congregation. Is you got to be secretive, and it is one of those things that everybody who's dating sort of does, and it's an unspoken rule. Like, the closer you are to getting married, the more lenient they become with leaving you alone. And so, it's that quest to do it, ruin your life in the process, because, sex isn't complicated enough.
We don't even talk about what goes on for them. It's just, husband, wife, baby.
Yeah.
Talk about all the chemicals that are released.
Yeah.
And what that means.
Well, and you can't do oral. And you can't do doggy style, and you can't do anal, and like
maybe hand jobs.
Maybe hand jobs. I don't remember what the policy was on hand jobs, but yeah, maybe that. But the oral thing, that was funny as hell. I got my parents used to get into vicious arguments about sex when I was a little kid. Scream at each other about sex, and like you're a little kid, and you're like, and you hear yelling out of the next room like, and oral sex is so disgusting, and I'm not doing it anymore. And you're like, what is that? I'm tired of feeling regret. What, because of a blowjob? Like, what is going on? That's gross, Mom. Like. It's confusing, and then you get older and you're like, oh, it's against the rules. Here, it's in the book right here.
And in the meantime, you're at like dance studios with a bunch of naked girls.
Oh my god.
I don't know how you did that. Just fuck.
Dude, it was just a lot of tears and a lot of masturbation. Yeah, we didn't even get into the dance studio, but that's another story. So aside from that. So wrapping up, like one of the things that
a little dancing bitch.
I'm a little dancing bitch. We'll talk about that later.
Your little belly issues.
Dancer. So one of the things that I want to do is like to talk about some aspect of art that you might be into right now that you recommend. So something that you're reading, watching, listening to. For me, I started binging last night the TV show Glow on the Netflix. Glow.
Yeah. I told you about my internet situation, so it's unfortunate that happened.
Yeah.
Wrestling.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. When you get it back, I'm halfway through the series. Like Laura and I binged it last night, like half the series. It is fucking awesome. If you're into wrestling in the slightest, and
it's a real show.
Yeah. What do you know about it? What do you know about the show?
All I know is that it's like the old show or the new show.
The old show. The old show. The
I just know the Glorious Ladies of Wrestling. I just know the acronym. I never watched it.
It was right before we were old enough to get into wrestling. But in the show, they show like original, like Hulk Hogan clips, stuff that I remember watching, that they're looking at for references. There's a lot of story build up. There's a lot of character build up. The wrestling is sort of like this icing on the cake, like because they don't know how to wrestle. So as far as the wrestling that they show, there's not a lot of it in the beginning, but they're building up to the show.
It's like 80s women wrestling too, so there's
It's extra bad. Extra bad. There's no one to teach these girls how to wrestle. It's like, we want to do a show. The basic premise of the show, without any spoilers, is that a rich kid gets an idea for a show and approaches this washed up director, who then finds a bunch of washed up actresses, and it's sort of like ad hoc wrestling show. We got to figure it out as we go. And it's sort of like the basic premise. And like everybody within the show, all the ladies trying to become wrestlers, they're all desperate and looking for a job and looking for roles that aren't shitty for women at the time, because you could be like a secretary. You know, there were no leading roles for women in movies and TV shows. It wasn't very prominent. So this was like their chance to take the lead role and develop unique characters of their own without people shooting them down.
yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it.
It's
Aside from Allison Brie finally getting topless, that's just a little pervert, you know, about it.
Oh, don't worry. The pervany will be fully satiated, 100%. This is women wrestling, dude. I don't care what shape they are. It's fun to watch. So what about you? What are you into?
The theme of me having incredible, apparently ADD and ADHD of the things that I buy and don't consume is going to be palpable throughout all of what we're doing.
Nice.
I look at my almost 2 weeks worth of comics I have to read. But yeah, it's mostly been comics. Invincible, I can't recommend enough. Is ending. It's in its final run. It's the best superhero book nobody's reading. It's by Robert Kirkman, who more famously is the Walking Dead guy. But this book, there's hundreds and hundreds of issues. There's trade paperbacks and omnibuses. It's basically it starts as your typical superhero story. This teenager whose dad is a member of a kind of Justice League, and he's waiting for his powers to kick in. And the first story arc, and I'll spoil it just so that you can understand that this is a different kind of book. The first story arc is the realization that his father is evil and murders the entire Justice League type group in the first issue, I believe. And it goes crazy from there. And it's well written. The characters are great. There's a lot of good violence. It's great. And it's ending soon, so I'm collecting that in actual issues, just the final story arc.
Okay.
So that Invincible, Robert Kirkman by Image Comics.
Rock on. And so if it's going to be ending soon, then it's probably going to be getting a full trade paper release.
Oh, it's on. Let's see. What is it? Let me find it here. The current issue is 137.
137. Okay.
It's part 5 of 12, so it's the very last little story arc.
That's a nice length.
Yeah, there's plenty of trades and giant hardcovers if you got the money. And yeah, it definitely has its ups and downs, and you don't see a lot of shit coming sometimes. And he's not afraid to murder people and do crazy shit. So it's a great book.
It's the luxury you get when you're not tied to canon.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's cool. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap this up then. This has been a great conversation.
Hopefully my mic wasn't being weird.
No, it's looking. No, it was good. At some point, we'll get you a real thing that you could plug in. But yeah. So that is ends the second podcast of Classically Trained Nobody. This is Brian Skoll and Matt Miller. We will be chatting at you later.